After 7 years of marriage, a devoted wife discovers her hidden fortune, while her husband realizes his dreams might crumble. Sarah stood in the attic, dust motes swirling around her as she opened an old box that smelled of cedar and memories. Inside were delicate porcelain figurines and tarnished silver spoons, each piece holding a story passed down from her grandmother. As she lovingly caressed a faded quilt, her heart raced with hope. A hope for the financial stability that had dwindled in her life as Mike's auto repair shop struggled against the unforgiving economy. With each antique she unearthed, her dreams of security flared anew, igniting a spark she hadn't felt in years. Sarah glimpsed her reflection in the dusty attic mirror. A weary smile masked with worry. She had devoted her days to Mike, cheering him on through his tireless hours at the shop, supporting him like a pillar in their tight-knit Midwestern community. But beneath the surface, she yearned for more, a sense of stability that seemed to slip through their fingers like sand. Their cheerful neighborhood barbecues and school events filled their life with warmth, yet the unspoken anguish of their finances loomed large. As she descended the attic stairs, clutching the box of antiques tightly, Sarah sensed something was off. She had caught glimpses of Mike's stressed expression lately, the way his brow furrowed when the bills piled high, or how he avoided discussing the numbers made her heart heavy with dread. Finally, she found him in the garage, shoulders hunched over a broken-down engine, a tangible metaphor for their lives. "Mike," she said quietly, heart racing, "we need to talk." He looked up, a mix of confusion and annoyance flashing across his face. Within moments, tensions erupted. "What now, Sarah? Can't you see I'm busy?" The hurt in her chest tightened. She showed him the box, her cherished discovery. "Look, we could sell these. Maybe they're worth something," she exclaimed. But instead of excitement, he looked at her like she had betrayed him. "What do you think? You think selling Grandma's things will solve our bills?" He clenched his fists, the anger distorting his kind features. Sarah felt the walls close in as his voice grew louder, accusations scattered like leaves in the wind. "You think I'm just going to sit back and let you bail me out?" The heart-wrenching weight of mistrust stared them down, the shadows of unspoken fears creeping between them. Everything had shifted in an instant. Her secret hope had become a source of conflict. In the midst of their impromptu battle of emotions, the reality sank in. It wasn't just about money. They had neglected a deeper conversation about their dreams and fears, leaving both feeling entirely alone. Caught in the turmoil, Sarah took a painful breath. "It's not just about your dreams, Mike. It's about our family." His eyes, once so filled with love, now brimmed with doubt. The gaping chasm of years spent trying to be strong for one another echoed around them, amplifying the silence. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." The rawness of vulnerability hung heavy in the air. With arms crossed and eyes locked, the couple stood at a crossroads. The world outside spun with life, but inside, their dreams teetered on the brink of collapse. Sarah longed to rescue Mike's fading dreams with her hidden fortune, but how could she when the cracks in their foundation begged for repair? They had built a life together, but now all she sensed was uncertainty. As the shadows of doubt loomed larger, Sarah couldn't help but wonder if they could transcend this mess of betrayal and miscommunication, standing stronger together. Would they emerge from this conflict unified in love, or let their dreams slip further from reach? The answers seemed as elusive as the antiques she clutched, each moment building towards a decision that would redefine their lives. Sarah's heart thudded heavily as she watched Mike's face twist with frustration. It was as if time had stopped, their world narrowing to this stark confrontation. The attic's treasures sat forgotten on the workbench, overshadowed by the intensity of their emotions. She took a step forward, desperate to breach the chasm that had yawned between them. "Mike," she implored, her voice quivering, "I just want to help us. I don't want to keep secrets. I thought you would understand." He scoffed, a harsh sound that ricocheted off the garage walls. "Understand? You want to sell my grandmother's legacy to pay off our debts? That's what you call help? His disbelief stung her like a physical blow. Tears threatened to spill, but she blinked them back. It's not just about Grandma's things, it's about saving us, she shouted, the rawness of her plea hanging in the air. Mike shook his head violently, anger mixing with something else, fear perhaps. You don't know the first thing about what it feels like to lose everything I've worked for. I can't just stand by and watch you pick up the pieces of my failure. Each word was a knife to Sarah, slicing through her hope and igniting a fresh wave of anguish. They had once been a team, facing life's challenges together, but now they stood on opposite sides of an unexpected battlefield. She needed him to see her, to understand the depth of her love and desire to support him. Please, I've been scared too, she admitted, her voice a whisper. But instead of talking, we've let the fear fester. You don't have to carry this weight alone. Mike paused, uncertainty flickering in his eyes like a candle caught in the wind. Suddenly, the garage felt suffocating, the air heavy with unspoken words. Sarah took another step but met his gaze with fresh determination. Maybe she was too late. Maybe he wouldn't listen, but she had to try once more. I believe in us, Mike, she said firmly. I believe in our dreams, but I can't do it without you, just like I know you won't face it without me. The tension between them crackled with complexity, and for the first time in weeks, he looked at her not with distrust, but with the fragility of hope. What if it's too late? He murmured, his voice low, almost breaking. Sarah stepped closer, feeling the warmth of their shared history. It's never too late until we decide to give up. Let's figure this out together. Where we go from here, what we truly want. You're not a failure, Mike. We're just in a rough patch. Let's find our way back. The garage fell silent, the sound of their heartbeats pulsing like an urgent drum. Mike's shoulders twitched, and he finally released a deep sigh, letting tension flow out of him. You're right, he admitted quietly. But how do we start? A glimmer of hope sparked inside her. Let's sort through these antiques. We'll learn what they're worth together. If we sell them, it doesn't mean giving up. It means moving forward. As they both knelt in front of the box, Sarah felt a shift in the air. They were finally taking the first steps toward healing. Sorting through their past could help them redefine their future. Suddenly Mike froze, holding up a delicate porcelain figurine. Wait, I remember this, he said, his eyes widening. Grandma used to tell a story about this one, something about fortune and secrets. Sarah leaned in closer, curiosity piqued. What was it? Taking a deep breath, Mike smiled faintly. Something that might change everything about how we see all this, but we need to hear the whole story. Their shared moment of nostalgia tangled with fresh determination, an unplanned adventure on the horizon. Because sometimes, fortune isn't just about money, sometimes it's about rediscovering the ties that bind. As Mike began to share, Sarah couldn't shake a feeling deep inside her, the nagging sense that this story might not only help them understand the past, but could also reshape their future. Would this rediscovered legacy be the key to unlock the life they had almost lost? That it may not be what it seems. Mike settled back into the dusty floor, the porcelain figurine resting gently in his palms. Sarah put her hand on his knee, urging him to continue. The air felt charged with anticipation, and she could see his mind sifting through memories, a labyrinth of emotions written across his face. Grandma always said that this figurine held a secret, he started, his voice softened by nostalgia. She believed it had magical properties, like it could reveal your true desires, but only if you truly needed it. What does that mean? Sarah asked, drawn in closer. He chuckled lightly through the weight of recollection. She told me that it would bring good fortune and clarity to those who were brave enough to face their truths. But if it ended up in the wrong hands, it could unleash turmoil. Do you think? Sarah's heart raced at the thought. Do you think it could actually help us? For a moment, silence filled the gap between them. Mike stared at the figurine, the memories swimming in his eyes. Then, with a slight tremor in his voice, he replied, Maybe it can. But it won't just be some magic trick. We have to confront what we want together first. He set the figurine down on the workbench to gather his thoughts. Each moment carried a weight, every hesitation filled with unvoiced concerns. I don't want to endanger what little we have left, Sarah, if we mess this up. She squeezed his knee tighter. We can't be afraid anymore, Mike. This is our chance. Let's dig into the past, but let's also be honest about what we want for our future. We owe it to each other to live authentically. With a nod, Mike reached for the figurine again, something shifting in his expression. Taking a deep breath, he relayed more of his grandmother's story. The last time Grandma spoke about this was when she was dying. She whispered that the figurine was meant for someone special, someone who needed it most, someone who could find their true fortune among the secrets. Sarah's heartbeat quickened. Do you think that someone could be us? Maybe uncovering Grandma's stories can lead us to something greater, a way out of all this despair? Mike's brow furrowed as he contemplated her words, the warmth of the figurine radiating between them. If we believe that together, then I guess we have to try, but it won't be easy. There's no growth without struggle, Sarah said, her resolve firmly anchoring her. Let's start with your grandmother's stories. Maybe they'll lead us to what she meant by fortune. He pulled the box of antiques closer, flipping through items with cautious hands. As they began to sort, layers of dust unveiled memories. An old locket, a rusted key, an antique mirror, all artifacts that held pieces of history waiting to be uncovered. As time slipped away, Mike unearthed a letter. Carefully unfolding it, the words flowed like secrets whispered from the past. They were filled with hope, dreams, and Grandma's unmistakable wisdom. Sarah, these are incredible, he murmured, his eyes widening. She talks about a fortune connected to family and love, not just money. Her heart soared. Do you see? We might just be on the brink of discovering what really matters. But with those unfolding secrets came a teetering uncertainty. As the evening light dimmed, shadows of doubt flickered across Mike's face. What if the fortune isn't what we hoped for? Sarah's chest tightened. Then we need to face it together, but we won't know until we delve deeper. As they continued reading, a sense of purpose washed over them both. That fragile bond, once frayed by worry, began to weave itself anew. But then, as if the air had thickened with a warning, a distant thunder rumbled outside. Mike glanced at Sarah, a mix of excitement and trepidation mirrored on their faces. Looks like a storm is coming. Are we ready for whatever comes next? Together, she affirmed softly. As they braced for the unraveling secrets, Sarah felt an undercurrent of change, pulling her forward into an unknown realm of possibilities. And as the first raindrops began to splatter against the garage roof, she understood. Change wasn't just coming, it was here. But above all, what would this journey reveal? What if uncovering those hidden truths entangled them deeper in ways they never imagined? The rumble of thunder echoed through the garage, and the air turned electric. As the first raindrops fell, Mike and Sarah sat in a cocoon of anticipation, the weight of the letter hanging heavily between them. They exchanged glances, each fueled by hope and cautious fear. Let's keep going, Mike said, breaking the thick silence. His hand trembled a bit as he flipped the letter back to its original position, committed now to pulling the stories from the shadows of their lives. We owe it to Grandma and to ourselves. Together they leaned in closer, the dim light casting soft shadows as they read further. As Mike read, Sarah felt the words sink deep into her heart, revealing pieces of a family tapestry she had never known. Listen to this, he said, his voice cracking with emotion. She speaks about resilience, how each person in our family faced their own storms, and every storm, it shaped a fortune. The rain began to pour heavily, drowning out the world outside, but their focus was unbroken. The letter spoke about love lost and found, dreams dashed and rebuilt, secrets cherished like treasures. Sarah felt a rush of connection to those who had come before her, a lineage woven together by struggle and hope. Look at this part, Mike said sharply, pointing to a phrase. She believes that true fortune isn't material, it's about the legacy you create through your choices. His eyes sparkled, and Sarah could see a renewed spark of purpose igniting within him. What if that's what we're meant to discover? She wondered out loud, her voice steady. What if our fortune is in all these stories, and it's up to us to carry them forward? As they shared their thoughts, a feeling of liberation started to grow. They weren't simply unearthing old memories, they were building a bridge to their future. With every word, it became clearer that they had been defined by fear for too long. "And it was right here all along," Mike said, gesturing to the figurine resting between them. "We were just too afraid to see." Just then, a powerful crash of thunder rumbled, shaking the very foundation of the garage. Startled, they both jumped, and the porcelain figurine rattled slightly. "What was that?" Sarah gasped, her breath catching. "It's just the storm," Mike assured, though his voice trembled. But the flickering light above seemed to echo his anxiety. "But maybe it's a sign that it's time for us to face what we've been avoiding." They exchanged a determined glance. "What if we each shared our deepest fears and desires?" Sarah suggested, her heart pounding with excitement and anxiety. "What would that look like?" Mike hesitated, a storm of emotions crossing his face. "It won't be easy." "I know," she said softly, her gaze unwavering. "But if we want to find our true fortune, we have to be brave enough to be vulnerable." With that, Mike nodded and took a shaky breath. The words began to form, truths wrapped in hesitation, dreams covered in doubt. As he opened up, Sarah felt her own walls begin to crack. There were things she'd buried deep, fears she had never voiced, and desires that had almost faded away. The rain beat down harder outside, a symphony to accompany their conversation, each thunderclap mirroring the stirrings of their hearts. But just when they were ready to leap into the depths of their souls, the lights flickered dangerously and plunged them into darkness. "Mike, the lights!" Sarah exclaimed, her voice rising in alarm. Panic surged through them, but beneath it was a glimmer of determination. They couldn't go back now. The storm outside was fierce, but it paled compared to the storms they were about to navigate within. "Let's keep going," Mike said, his voice steady even in uncertainty. "Together," Sarah echoed, clinging to that word like it was their lifeline. As their surroundings faded into shadows, the rain continued to pour, drowning out the world outside as they ventured deeper into their truths. Would this storm reveal the fortune they yearned for, or would it expose their vulnerabilities in a whole new light? The darkness enveloped them like a thick fog, and Sarah's heart raced. The sudden quiet, replaced by the pounding rain, felt like a void where words were meant to fill. She could barely make out Mike's outline just inches from her, but she took a breath and focused on the warmth of his presence. "Where do we start?" Mike's voice seemed to resonate in the dark, a lifeline drawing her closer. "Let's talk about the things we've kept hidden," Sarah replied, feeling her stomach flip. The thought of sharing what she had locked away felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. "Fear has held us back for so long, it's time to let it go." "Okay," he said, his voice steady. "I'll go first." The rain drummed a steady rhythm above them, allowing Mike to gather his thoughts. "I've always been scared of failure," he finally admitted, his words slipping out like secrets meant only for her ears. "I put up a front, acting like everything is fine, but I worry. What if I don't live up to the expectations? What if I let down everyone who believes in me?" Her heart softened. "You won't let them down. You're allowed to stumble and still rise," she reassured him, her voice barely above a whisper in the darkness. "Can't we fail together? What if our failures are just stepping stones?" His silence told her he was still wrestling with his fears. "And what about you?" he finally asked, curiosity tinged with concern. "What do you fear?" Taking a deep breath, Sarah felt the weight of 1,000 thoughts crash over her. "I fear that I'm not enough, that I'm not the partner you deserve," she confessed. "Sometimes I feel like I'm just pretending to hold it all together. What if I don't have what it takes?" The vulnerability in her voice hung heavy between them, even thicker than the rain that pounded outside. "Sarah," Mike said softly, searching for her hand in the darkness. "You are everything to me. You never need to pretend around me. I love you for everything you are, even the parts you don't see yourself." His words washed over her like a warm embrace, washing away some of her worries. "But what if I don't know how to access that fortune Grandma talked about? What if it's buried too deep, dammed up by all my insecurities?" The shadows in the garage seemed to shift, forming a tunnel for their fears to escape. "Then we'll dig together," Mike vowed, one story at a time. Suddenly, a flash of lightning illuminated the garage for a split second, highlighting the figurine they had first glanced at. Its porcelain sheen felt like a beacon in their confusion. It belonged to her, Sarah said, her voice catching. I wonder what stories it holds. Let's make it a part of our journey, Mike replied, a hint of excitement in his voice now. What if we started sharing our dreams, what we want for ourselves, for each other? Her pulse quickened. Yes, that would be brave and freeing, Sarah exclaimed. I want to travel. I want to see the world, to experience everything beyond these four walls. What else? He urged, his enthusiasm infectious. I want to create something, maybe a business that embodies our family's legacy, not just mine, but ours. I want to pour our story into something that can inspire others. Mike's laughter echoed, a sound like raindrops falling on a tin roof. Then let's do it. Let's take those dreams and make plans to build them together. As they navigated their hopes amidst the darkness, a determined light began to swell within them, flickering like the very bulbs that had gone out. In that moment, Sarah felt possibilities blooming, vivid dreams pushing through the soil of their fears. Suddenly, the lights flashed back on, bathing the garage in warm light. The storm still raged outside, but the chaos felt contained now, manageable. Oh wow, Mike said, startled by the brightness. It really is time for us to embrace this. Sarah's heart soared. Then let's make a pact right here, right now, she said, feeling bold, to chase our fortune together, starting with the truth. Together, he affirmed, his gaze firm. They clasped hands like an unbreakable bond. As they stood poised to embark on their journey, a loud crack of thunder rattled the walls. Outside, the storm's fury peaked, but within, a different storm was brewing, one of rebirth and courage. What truths awaited them beyond their dreams? Would they embrace the fortune that was theirs to discover? As the rain pounded outside, Sarah and Mike lingered in the glow of the newly restored light. The air felt electric, and the storm that had threatened to drown them in darkness now seemed a backdrop for the awakening of their dreams. The figurine shone brightly beside them, gleaming as if it were an ember catching flame. What's our first step? Mike asked, his eyes sparkling with determination. Sarah loved that he was ready for action. Let's start with the business, she said, enthusiasm bubbling through her. We can brainstorm ideas tonight. We need to bring as much of our story into it as possible. Right, he nodded, leaning in closer. What if we looked into what Grandma did? She had that unique approach to community and potential, remember? Absolutely, we can build on that, make it relevant today. People want connections, stories that resonate, something they can relate to, she replied, her mind spinning with possibilities. The thought excited her. They could create something beautiful that honored their past, while leaving a mark on their future. But beneath the excitement was still a trace of apprehension. But what if we fail? Then we fail together, Mike reassured her. And we learn, the worst thing would be not trying at all. She smiled, grateful for his unwavering support. The fear that once tethered her to the shadows began to dissipate, revealing a path. Okay, let's do this. What if we start by reaching out to our friends and family? We could share our business idea and get their feedback, Sarah suggested, the anxiety in her voice ebbing away. Great idea! Plus, we could turn it into a community event, make it fun. We can gather stories, experiences, even interview people to include in our business concept, Mike said, his excitement bubbling over as he envisioned the possibilities. And we can use social media to build a following, she added, her blood thrumming with anticipation. Maybe even plan small workshops to test the waters. As they bounced ideas back and forth, the storm continued outside. But inside the garage, their laughter and zeal filled the space, pushing away the remnants of doubt. Midway through the brainstorming session, Sarah stopped, staring at the figurine that had inspired them. What if this means something more? What if Grandma left us not just a fortune but a legacy? Mike quirked an eyebrow. Like a treasure map leading to something bigger? Exactly, she exclaimed, the metaphor igniting something in her. Each story we gather could lead us to not just what we want to build, but how we want to live. Just as she spoke, a sudden crash of thunder boomed, causing them both to jump in surprise. Sarah laughed, shaking her head. Even the universe is getting excited about this. But then a darker thought crept in, niggling at her heart. What if we're not prepared? What if these stories lead us to uncomfortable places? Then we embrace that discomfort, Mike said, squeezing her hand. Growth doesn't come from safety, it comes from taking risks. Her heart raced again, not from fear this time, but from the thrill of what lay ahead. Could they face whatever challenges would emerge? The thought echoed like a drum in her chest. This was more than just a business venture, it was their rebirth. As noise and fierce winds swirled outside, she drew in a steadying breath. So, are we really ready to dig deep? Mike met her gaze, the confidence shimmering in his eyes. Let's turn those buried fears into our unbreakable foundation. With time ticking and the storm still raging, they had no way of knowing the truths that awaited them once they began their journey. And deeper still, unknown to them, within that figurine rested the key to a future they hadn't even begun to fathom. What secret would they uncover when they dared to delve into their past? Would it lead them to success or shatter everything they thought they knew? The storm outside raged on, but inside the garage, hope danced in the air. With each idea exchanged, their spirits soared higher, shattering the walls of doubt that had held them captive for too long. Sarah took a gulp of the cool air, intertwining her fingers with Mike's, feeling grounded in this shared vision. Let's get to work on a community event, Mike said, his voice earnest. We could call it Voices of Our Roots. It sounds inviting, don't you think? She nodded vigorously. It's perfect. We can ask people to share their stories about Grandma, about community, about traditions. There's so much we could learn. As the words flowed like a steady stream, a fresh wave of excitement swept through them. Weekend plans shifted into focused meetings, and phone calls turned into meaningful conversations. Sarah's heart raced, not just from the thrill of a business venture, but also from the sweet nostalgia that bound them to their past. The days turned into weeks as they mobilized people around them. Friends and family gathered with a shared passion for honoring Grandma's legacy. On a chilly Saturday morning, they set up folding chairs under a large tent in the local park. Vibrant posters adorned with sketches of Grandma's favorite places created a warm atmosphere. Look at all these people! Sarah clapped her hands together, overwhelmed with gratitude as she noticed the crowd forming. I can't believe how everyone showed up. Mike surveyed the crowd, his smile wide and genuine. They believe in us, in her. A mixture of laughter, chatter, and the smell of hot coffee wafted through the air. Stories began to unfold like petals opening under the sun. The first speaker was an elderly neighbor who had shared a long friendship with Grandma. Her voice trembled slightly as she recounted how Grandma always had time for a listening ear. Life is all about connections, she said softly. She taught me we thrive through empathy. As stories were shared, Sarah could feel something shift within her, a deep-rooted understanding that their endeavor was not just a business, but a tapestry of lives intertwined. Each tale contributed to the fabric of their collective experiences, revealing common threads of love, struggle, and resilience. However, as the day progressed, shadows of doubt began to linger at the edges. Between anecdotes and laughter, an ominous thought nagged at Sarah. What if this brings up things we're not ready to face? She whispered to Mike while the crowd was engaged. He placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder, his strength steadying her. Just keep listening. The hard stories are the ones that make us human, he replied, his voice a soft anchor in her rising tide of uncertainty. The sun began to dip low in the sky, casting a golden hue across the gathering. And just as one woman recounted a painful memory about loss, the wind picked up, rustling the leaves above them, almost as if the universe was listening. Sometimes, those treasures we hide away are the hardest to face, she said, her voice catching. The atmosphere shifted, the heaviness of shared grief palpable. At that moment, Sarah heard her own heartbeat escalating, as if to sync with something larger than any of them. She glanced at Mike, who met her gaze with an intensity that melded love with strength. Are we ready for this? She thought. An unexpected voice called out from the crowd. What are your hidden treasures, Sarah? The question sliced through her thoughts, leaving her with a surge of vulnerability. She felt exposed. The weight of Grandma's legacy pressed against her chest, and she realized there were stories she had kept locked tight. Maybe it's time to share mine, she heard herself say, surprising even Mike, who looked at her with a mix of pride and concern. In that moment, the storm inside her began to quiet, a clear path unfurling as secrets loomed just at the edges of her mind. What forgotten story would she finally unveil? And could the truth bring the healing they all needed? Sarah took a deep breath, her heart beating like a drum in the silence that suddenly engulfed her. The weight of anticipation hung in the air, thick and electric. The crowd waited, eager and expectant, and she felt the weight of their eyes, a mix of concern and encouragement, urging her forward. "Okay," she started, her voice small but steady. "There's something I've kept to myself, something I've never brought up because, well, I wasn't sure how to say it." Mike's hand tightened around hers, grounding her as she felt the vulnerability of the moment. The wind whispered softly through the trees, creating an intimate cocoon around them. "It was right before Grandma passed away," she continued cautiously, feeling the words begin to flow. "She gave me a key, a small ornate thing that looked so old, it could have come from a fairy tale." Heads perked up, curiosity sparked. "She said it opened a small chest in her attic. I never thought much of it at the time. Just another whimsical gesture, I figured." A nervous chuckle escaped her lips. "I was too wrapped up in my teenage woes to understand its significance, but after her passing, I went to look for it. I found the key, but the chest? It was gone. Thrown out, I thought, until I asked Mom. She told me it was in storage, waiting for a moment like this." The crowd's energy shifted, leaning in as if gripping every word. But that wasn't the most shocking part. Sarah felt a rush of fear chilling her. "When I finally opened that chest a few months later, there were letters stuffed inside, letters she and my grandfather had written to each other throughout their life together. And there was also a little silver box." She paused, her breath hitching. "I had thought it was just a trinket, but inside were jewels, pieces of their life together, each one holding a story. It was a fortune, more than I ever imagined." Gasps echoed throughout the crowd, a collective intrigue weaving through the group. "Honestly, I didn't know what to do with it. Part of me wanted to share it with everyone, to honor their love and legacy." She looked around the crowd, hands trembling, but another part just wanted to lock it away and keep it as my own burden to carry. A heartbeat of silence fell, the tension palpable as she shared more of herself. "And then I thought, maybe Grandma left this for me, not just as a way to inherit wealth, but as a reminder of what it means to build a life with love, to take risks, to share, to bring people together, just like we're doing today." The crowd erupted in soft murmurs of agreement, and Sarah's chest swelled with warmth, realizing her story had resonated. "But what do I do now?" she whispered, half to herself, half to the friends and family surrounding her. Mike, ever attentive, leaned closer and whispered, "You share what they meant to you. You share it with us." She looked down at the key still in her hand, its metal glimmering in the fading light. "Yes," she said slowly, determination igniting within her. "It's time to bring Grandma's treasure to life, not just the jewels, but her legacy, her stories. We can use it to bring hope." The crowd erupted again, a swell of applause mingling with shouts of encouragement. As the sky darkened, painted in shades of twilight, Sarah felt a rush of relief and purpose wash over her. She had opened a door not just to a treasure, but to profound connections and healing. But just as her heart swelled with hope, a figure emerged in the shadows at the edge of their gathering, watching closely, the silhouette unmistakably familiar. Her heart sank. What did they want? Could this new challenge threaten everything she had just started to build? The laughter around her faded into a distant whisper as her gaze locked onto that figure. "Mike," she breathed, her voice trembling again, a storm brewing in her chest. What had she uncovered that could change everything? And could her newfound courage withstand the truth that was about to unfold? Sarah's heart raced as the figure stepped closer, the fading light revealing familiar features. Eric, her estranged brother. She hadn't seen him in years, not since that argument shattered their family into pieces. His expression was unreadable, a mix of uncertainty and something deeper, something she couldn't place amidst the swirling emotions in her chest. "Sarah," he called, his voice cutting through the noise of the crowd. It was heavy, laden with the weight of unspoken words. "Why are you here?" she asked, trying to hold on to her calm as her emotions threatened to spill over. She could feel the warmth of the crowd's encouragement fading, their eyes flickering between her and Eric, tension thick in the air. "I came to find you," he replied, stepping forward. I heard what you said about Grandma's treasure. We need to talk. The murmurs of the crowd quieted as their focus shifted to the unexpected reunion. Mike's hand squeezed hers tighter, a solid anchor in a suddenly unsteady world. Sarah's gaze darted around. They had just shared a beautiful moment, one filled with healing and hope. Now Eric's presence felt like a storm front rushing in, darkening the sunny skies. What could you possibly want now? She snapped, the hurt from their past boiling just under the surface. After all this time? I know I messed up, but this is not about me. It's about Grandma and the stories we've lost, he said earnestly. His eyes softened, a hint of regret shadowing his features. I came because maybe those stories are more important than our fights. Sarah's heart wavered, caught between anger and the glimmer of a reconciliation she hadn't thought possible. Memories flooded her mind, growing up together, laughter shared over birthday cakes, secrets whispered under the stars. They'd only been kids then, before everything splintered. What do you mean stories? She prodded, wary yet curious. I found something too, he breathed, glancing around as if to make sure the secret was safe from prying ears. Grandma left me a journal with clues about our family. It talks about the necklace, the one you found in her chest. There's more. Lots more. It's about the legacy of the family, everything she meant for us to understand. What do you know about the necklace? Eric hesitated, the weight of his confidence faltering momentarily. I think it's connected to something bigger than us. Our family has roots that run deeper than either of us knows, and Grandma wanted us to figure it out together. Her skepticism battled against curiosity, and the implicit invitation reminded her of a time when they did everything together. The thought of piecing together their family history was almost intoxicating. Together? She echoed, the word heavy with possibility and doubt. Yeah, he said, his voice steadier now. Let's not repeat our mistakes. If we can unlock this history, maybe we can start mending everything else. As the crowd watched silently, she felt the weight of the decision. What would it mean to let him back in? Could she face their family legacy with him by her side after everything that had happened? The air shimmered with unvoiced potential. A part of her was terrified, yet another part sparkled with hope. The urge to understand their grandparents' lives, their love, their struggles. This could be a fresh beginning. But as she opened her mouth to respond, a new voice chimed from the back, cutting the moment short. Are we really doing this? The family drama right here? It was Debbie, her longtime friend, and the hint of laughter in her tone felt like a lifeline. The crowd chuckled, breaking whatever tension had settled over the gathering. Sarah turned back to Eric, torn between old wounds and new possibilities. Let's talk, but we do it on my terms. A satisfied smile flickered on his lips, but before he could reply, the crowd started to disperse, their conversations resuming. The moment was slipping away, but she felt a flicker of thrill for what lay ahead. Just as hope began to bloom, Sarah's gaze caught something more in Eric's expression, a shadow of hesitation. What was he hiding? Was there a darker secret intertwined with their family legacy? As the night air cooled, Sarah knew her journey had only just begun. Would she uncover more than just her family's treasure? And could the bonds of blood be rekindled? Or would the past continue to haunt her future? Underneath the expansive canopy of stars, the night wrapped around them in a shroud of possibilities. Sarah felt a flicker of warmth emanating from Mike as they held hands, each pulse resonating with a quiet urgency. The rain had stopped, leaving the world glistening. The air felt fresh, invigorating, much like the conversation swirling around them. Let's head home, she said quietly, her heart still racing from the whirlwind of emotions and revelations. The crowd began to thin, excitement ebbing into calm conversations about how to further document and share the stories they had begun to uncover. As they walked hand in hand away from the park, Mike turned to her, his brow knitted in contemplation. Are you sure about this? About talking things through with Eric? I need to try, Sarah replied, determination firming in her voice. We can't carry this burden of our past anymore if we want to truly move forward. Hours later, tucked in the warm corners of their cozy home, Sarah pored over the notes and memories now tied up in the efforts of the community event. Shimmers of hope reflected from the letters in the figurine, a gentle echo of their journey toward healing, not just for themselves, but for their entire family. Meanwhile, Mike animatedly flipped through the photo albums of their early years, family pictures capturing the innocent joys of summers spent under their grandparents' roof. "We should share these stories with Eric, show him what he's missed," he said, the enthusiasm brimming in his eyes. Just then, a ripple of fear shot through her. What if his return stirred more than just stories? What if he only wants to dredge up the past? What if it's too painful? Mike squeezed her hand, his voice steady and calming. "I can't promise it will be easy, but what's life without a few risks? Just remember where we're grounded now. The love we have built right here," he said, nodding toward the warmth of home. Sarah let his words wash over her, their meaning settling deep within. Would this journey encourage Eric to truly re-enter her life, or might she simply endure another cycle of hurt and disappointment? As dawn approached the next morning, a soft glow illuminated their surroundings, signaling a new beginning. "Let's call him," Mike urged gently, holding her gaze as they both sat on the edge of their bed. "Okay," Sarah agreed, nerves churning as her heart began to rhythmically race at the thought of reconnecting with Eric. The phone rang, and every ring ignited the uncertainty swirling inside her, until finally she heard his breath on the other end. "Sarah, I didn't expect you to call." "I think we need to meet," she said, gripping the phone tightly, "about Grandma's stories and, well, us." The silence on the other end of the line felt heavy with tension, a past too deep and raw to ignore. "Do you really think we can face what's buried?" Eric asked, vulnerability creeping into his tone. "Yes," she said, conviction ringing clear, "because I need to believe there's a way forward for us. Together." They set a time for the following day, and as she hung up, an unexpected hope flickered within her. Maybe this time would be different. Maybe they could forge stronger connections, stronger than those defined by past hurts. The day arrived, and the sun shone bright as Sarah prepared. Each detail mattered. She pulled out the old locket, the silver key, the fragile porcelain figurine that had become symbols of their newfound strength. When Eric arrived, Sarah felt the weight of time between them as the door swung open. He stood there, older, remorseful, and surprisingly nervous. The memories of their childhood flashed behind her eyes, each one laced with the scent of nostalgia. "Hey," she said softly, heart fluttering. "Hey," he replied, a hint of uncertainty in his eyes. After tentative exchanges, they sat across from each other at the kitchen table cluttered with remnants of letters and trinkets. "Grandma would have wanted us to share our lives," Sarah began, her voice shaking yet resolute. "She believed in the ties that bind, in the legacy of family." With a deep breath, she recounted that pivotal night when she discovered her hidden treasures. "Can you imagine how many stories could be shared, how much healing is possible?" she asked, searching his face for a glimmer of realization. Eric nodded slowly, his walls softening. "I've missed so much, haven't I?" "Yes," Sarah admitted, her breath catching. "But we can't change that. We can only embrace what's ahead." As the conversation deepened, the past began to unravel, revealing wounds and regrets, but also understanding and hope. Each shared story acted like glue, slowly piecing their bond back together. Hours passed, and together they unearthed layers of memories and laughter, all while slowly mending the rifts that had threatened their family. In that moment, the past no longer burdened them, but rather, it became a pathway toward richer connections. With tears glistening, Eric offered a tremulous smile as he reached for the key Sarah had placed on the table. "You really think we can unlock this fortune together?" he asked, eyes wide with belief. "I believe we already have." They knelt together, rediscovering their roots, embracing family stories, rekindling love and shining hope. As they stood tall against the backdrop of a promising future, they finally knew this legacy was theirs to shape, together. And as Sarah reflected on their journey, one filled with tension, struggle, and resilience, she embraced the truth. Fortune, after all, was not merely about riches. It was about love, connection, and the strength to rise above the storms they once feared. This was just the beginning. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that could inspire your own journey. Leave a like right now to feed the algorithm and let the world know these stories matter. Share your responses and feelings about the ending in the comments. We want to hear from you. And don't wait not even one more second to share this with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Together, let's spread the hope and healing.